to me, it's just set apart and different when the creator of the game has his name on the floor and his original rules in the building. When the guy that his individual dominance perhaps changed the game as much as any, Wilt Chamberlain, has his number 13 hanging in the rafters.
Welcome into another great week, another great conversation here on Cousins Conversations. I have a legend in the college voice game, the voice of KU Athletics, Brian Hanni, with me here. Brian, first let's just get into it real quick. I mean, you were hired around the time that I graduated from KU, so you've been in it for a while now. What's something people should know that they don't know about being the voice of a whole athletics department for a big school?
Well, Nick, thanks a lot for having me on. First and foremost, I appreciate it, buddy. It's great to see you and fun to watch your career journey. I would just say that it's a blessing to get to do what I do because every day is different. I think a lot of folks just assume that if you're the voice of the Jayhawks or the voice of the Wildcats or whatever the team is, that you just show up for game days and maybe the occasional coach's show, and that's about it. But it's a full-time ambassador's role, 24/7, 365. I MC about 90 events a year. That's something that people might not know in terms of, emceeing the master of ceremonies for a charity or a pep rally or a fundraising event across the state. There's affiliate outreach to all 31 of our affiliates. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that goes into it. This day and age of external branding and social media and all that, we get to sit in and be a part of some of those roundtable discussions on the Kansas campus. And then, there's the interactive component of what we do with fans and in the community. I run a pediatric cancer celebrity basketball event every year that we've been doing for 18 years now. And that in the spring and early summer is kind of like a second full-time job. So I think the thing that folks might not know is simply that so much more goes into it than just the calling of the games. In fact, when they hired me, they said that the play-by-play stuff in their eyes was 40% of the job. And the ambassador's role and everything else that would go into representing KU and that Jayhawk on your chest was really the other 60%. So I take that very seriously. I try to do as much as any guy you'll meet in my position in terms of the outreach and the community engagement type stuff. And it's really fulfilling work too. It's honestly as big a blessing almost as sitting courtside at Allen Fieldhouse. So I enjoy all of the above, and I'm really fortunate to get to do it.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But first, KU now a baseball school, Big 12 champions, hosting a regional there in Lawrence for the first time in school history. Every time I saw KU baseball on my feed on Instagram, it was like coming back in crazy games or hitting home runs, 4 in an inning, 3 in an inning. What's made the success of the team this year to now host a regional for the first time?
Well, they do have 24 comeback wins this year, which
crazy.
A mindset that a player from a year ago, Jackson Hauge, who hit 20 home runs, which at the time was second best all time at KU. He had this never say die Hawks mentality. And that's what he called the team. That's how they refer to themselves. They never felt like they were out of any game. And whether it was a 5-0 deficit that they had to steadily claw their way back from, or entering the bottom of the ninth down 5, they feel like they got a shot. And it's the type of mentality that's spread over this entire roster. And I think when you couple that with the fact that there is no weak link in this Kansas lineup, 1 through 9, there's no at-bats off for opponent pitchers when you face Kansas. They hit about 288 as a team. They're too shy of the school record for season home runs with still at least 2 games to go. So they'll probably break that mark. They've already set the school record and then some in strikeouts by the pitching staff. And so whether it's the depth and breadth of the lineup or the depth and breadth of the pitching arsenal with 3 great weekend options and then a bullpen that is as deep as any I can remember in 20-plus seasons doing the play-by-play here for baseball, it's just probably the quality and the quantity of talent. Coach Fitzgerald is obviously a tremendous head coach, but he's an even better person when it comes to selling a program, selling a vision, and getting guys to want to entrust their future to he and his staff. And John Coyne, his recruiting director and coordinator, is one of the best in the country too. And I think that when a lot of the rest of college baseball was going with the age of the transfer portal and seeking the mid-major and major conference transfers while still investing in great high school seniors, a lesser tapped market all of a sudden became the JC ranks. And Kansas went all in and had back-to-back number one rated junior college recruiting classes. And now I think after some of the attention that's gotten, you're going to see more schools start to try to mine those fields as well. But we've been really fortunate to have not only great scouts and eyes for talent in terms of evaluation, but also great player developers on this staff too. So those 3 number one rated JUCO classes have been able to bear a lot of fruit for us. And I think in some cases, guys have even exceeded expectation on what they could do here. Tyson LeBlanc being a case in point example. Looks like LeBlanc, by the way, but he pronounces it with this French Cajun LeBlanc. He's become a household name, whether you can say it or not, because he's probably going to be a top 3-round draft pick. He's hit 21 home runs. He's great in the field. He leads the team in every offensive category pretty much. And he's just a stud of a leader on this club as well. And that's a great example of a JC guy that came in with a lot of acclaim, but has taken it probably 3 notches even higher based on the coaching he's received once he got here. So a lot to like in that regard. And these Jayhawks have certainly swept this campus with baseball fever and got more and more folks piling on the bandwagon by the day. It's going to be a raucous atmosphere for the first ever Lawrence Regional later this week.
Hoagland, one of the great places to watch a game for sure, hosting a regional now. And 42 wins, and Arkansas is also coming to town too. Arkansas is usually a mainstay in the College World Series, so to have a big team like that, KU number 1 seed. What are some of the expectations you're going to see this weekend for people who are watching or want to go to the ballpark?
Well, the ballpark's going to look different. They've added a backyard component. That's what they're calling it, beyond left field, where they took down the fence and brought up a more transparent fence line that you can see through. And so they're adding capacity for about 1,000 more fans that are able to bring lawn chairs, and there's going to be some tents out there, and then additional fan accessibility down the left field line as well. So in total, they've gone from 2,500 capacity to 4,000. So the first thing you'll notice is just a much bigger horde of people, and they're having to bring in extra porta potties and extra concession stands and food trucks and all that. And so it's going to be a sea of humanity compared to what we're used to. But in terms of expectations for the team, I mean, obviously when you host, you expect to advance. However, this is the most difficult region by RPI, an average RPI of any of the 16. And so I think if we're talking, overall team aspirations and expectations, it's advance. If you're talking from a realistic media perspective, it's make it to the regional final, be one of the last 2 teams standing, let come what may. And that's not me selling them short at all, but that would be a nice next step for a club that made its first regional in 11 years a season ago, only to go 2-Q down in Fayetteville and never got to face Arkansas because we got knocked out with 2 quick losses before them. You want to not only get to Arkansas this time, but be one of the last 2 teams standing. And if so, we'll see if that depth of Kansas pitching truly is enough, and if they can punch their ticket to move on to the Super Regionals.
Nice to see baseball doing well. Let's go to the next door neighbor, Allen Fieldhouse, right there. You've had a front row seat to a lot of greatness, national championships, and Final Fours, and all those things. What continues to make sitting courtside there calling games special for you every year?
Well, it'll never get old getting to work on Naismith Drive, and you're walking the hallowed halls of Allen Fieldhouse 18 times a year for KU men's basketball home games. It's one of many blessings in my position that I will never, ever take for granted. And if I ever lose the luster or the awe and the mystique of walking through that tunnel and onto that floor, then maybe it's time to hang them up, because that's truly a one-of-one experience. Don't get me wrong, there's other great places. Cameron Indoor, certainly. I've had a chance to tour it on a non-game day, and it's special. I've been to the Dean Dome. I've been to Assembly Hall in Indiana. I've been to what used to be Pauley Pavilion at UCLA. I've been to Michigan State, and so many of the others that you would consider, Tucson, Arizona, great venues. But to me, it's just set apart and different when the creator of the game has his name on the floor and his original rules in the building. When the guy that his individual dominance perhaps changed the game as much as any, Wilt Chamberlain, has his number 13 hanging in the rafters. When the father of basketball coaching, Forrest Fogg Allen, when his name graces the building, and you look at all of the great spin-offs that his pupils, his coaching mentees went on to create at North Carolina and Kentucky and all that, it all branches out from Fogg. His history is all over that place, all the way back to the banner that was made in the 1980s out of a bunch of shower curtains that say, "Pay heed, all who enter, beware of the fog." I mean, this place just oozes aura and history and mystique. And so it'll never get old getting to go to work there. And the crowd, when they're rocking, even now at 15,300, which is 1,000 less than it used to be, they did that with some renovations to add some more concourse spacing and better ventilation units and all that. They shrunk capacity by 1,000. Even at 15.3, when that building gets humming and those fans get rocking and rock chalking, it's as loud as any place in the country. And I'll put my play-by-play clips on those nights when the crowd's roaring behind it up against anything I would call elsewhere, because there's just something about having that sixth man at Kansas behind your calls. Everything sounds amazing when that's the case. And it's not because of the announcer. It's because of the atmosphere, the aura, and the energy of that historic building.
Oh, Mecca of college basketball. Wanted to go to every single game when I was there and took every opportunity I could to do that as well. Do you think that the atmosphere and just, continuing to have success is what's keeping Bill Self going? Because we know kind of recently, he's had some health issues and things like that, but he's still going around. He's still going.
Yeah, I think the pursuit of title number 3 is what keeps him still going. I'm looking at the other side of my office wall here, and I've got the 88 champs, University Daily Couzin front page there, the 2008 champs there, and then this was the J-Dub in the middle from 2022.
Oh, love that, yeah.
I use that one because the Couzin photo, with all due respect to the UDK, they used a picture from a different game on the front of the issue. They had to get it out before midnight. And so I didn't like that one as much. But the point is, I'm looking at that as I answer your question because quite frankly, it's what drives most coaches at this stage in their career, the pursuit of one more. For some coaches, they've never even gotten to the top of the mountain and they're still pursuing that first. But in his case, he's won 2 titles. He'd love to be on that short list of coaches that have won at least 3. And that's what drives him. And I think he thought he had a team that good a year ago, and things never fully materialized like we hoped. Obviously, the availability or lack thereof for about 11 games of Darren Peterson was a tough deal for Kansas, and they struggled to form a true identity with is he going to be able to play or is he not? Will he or won't he? There were kind of 2 separate identities last season, and it was a team that had some other shortcomings, in terms of the three-point shooting maybe not developing like they thought it might. The interior play was good at times, but could have been better. Some of Self's best teams had a little more consistency in the post. And so I think these are all things that Kansas has tried to address for this next roster. And you've got another number 1 rated player in Tyron Stokes coming in that we're really excited about. And so we'll see what it looks like. But, Coach Self is as awesome to be around as ever. I mean, he has not slowed down one iota. He is as charismatic as he's ever been in recruiting. He's as, absolutely sharp and tactical with his amazing basketball mind on game days as he's ever been in devising a game plan to slow down an opponent or draw up that perfect baseline out of bounds play to get a bucket coming out of a timeout. He's as good as he's ever been there. He's as great as he's been at motivating players and bringing them along. I just think that for Kansas and all schools in America, it's been an adjustment to having to reload your roster by about 90% of the roster every single April. And the lack of continuity and kind of building a Devontae Graham or a Frank Mason type player over a longer runway of time means you have to build it differently. And those portal additions have to click faster and more cohesively. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And, we're hopeful that it's going to work better in the upcoming season. But he's a joy to be around. He's as incredible as any coach I've ever had a chance to cover, not just in his on-court accomplishments and prestige, but with the way he treats people off the floor and just how easy he is to be around for a guy who's a first ballot Hall of Famer. I will never take that for granted, in the same way that I never sell it short the opportunity to walk onto James Naismith Court. We are truly blessed to have both of those experiences here in Lawrence, Kansas, being around Bill and being around the best basketball venue in the world. And so long as those are both hand in hand and collectively together, they have a 95% home court winning percentage when Bill's coaching in the Fog. That's pretty special stuff, and something that none of us take lightly around here.
Oh yeah, people were like, "You're crazy. KU's underdog at home." I'm like, "Oh yeah, definitely take that." I mean, KU against anybody at home, definitely take that. If you want to bet on the games, I mean, I'm not saying gamble, but I'm saying maybe do that. But is another program that's changed a lot since I've been there is football. Get the new stadium going. Most of it is built now. How have you seen the game day atmosphere change and the program change under Lance Leipold and with this new environment around the team?
Well, it's been incredible to see Travis Goff get this project, pretty close to the finish line. We have 3 phases, and we're in the midst of phase 2 right now. But in terms of the preparations to finish it all on time and on budget, everything's looking good there. But the point is, this is for many generations of Jayhawks, the fulfillment of a dream that's been discussed for 30 plus years. Previous administrations have tried to get it done and could not. It took the right timing of the right innovative leader working in concert with academic leadership on campus. And we've got one of the most sports-minded and forward-thinking chancellors on any academic campus in the country, in Doug Girard. You need those two to work closely together in concert and be in stride and in sync, and they absolutely have been. But then it also took on-field success from Lance Leipold to get the donor base motivated and believing that we should fund a project like this. And so back-to-back bowl games for just the second time in school history was a necessary liftoff point. And while we've just missed bowl eligibility the last couple of years, and technically they turned down a bowl game last year at 5-7, but the point is we've just missed that 6-win mark the last couple of years. It's clearly a program that is just night and day different in terms of the roster build, the talent on campus, the strength and conditioning program that's churning out more NFL-type caliber prospects than we'd had the previous 20 years probably combined. And really exciting to see, I think, what they have in place for the season ahead. I know folks have been bummed to finish 5-7 the last 2 years, and there have been a handful of games in each season that easily could have gone the other way if the ball just bounced this direction or that. And that's not to make excuses. Point is, they haven't been far off from being 4-time consecutive bowl appearance type team. But in this case, I fully expect them to get back to the postseason. We're fired up about the trip to London to play Arizona State over there in the Union Jack game. And I think that for Kansas, though they have to replace a quarterback, the return of Andy Kotelnicki at offensive coordinator is going to make that transition go a lot smoother, whoever wins the job in the summer. But I think if you look at the talent in the trenches, both up front on the D-line and some of the guys that they have protecting the quarterback and paving lanes for 2 really good running backs atop that RB stable, I think there's reasons to be kind of bullish about this team's chances. I see them as a 7-5 type club as of today, with a chance for something much better. And I don't normally lock in predictions or anything like that, but just in looking at opportunity and in sensing what's on this roster, this to me is absolutely a bowl team with a chance to build upon that if whoever wins the quarterback job really takes it and runs with it. So challenging slate, no doubt. But it's a program that certainly is highly motivated to finish much higher than they have the last couple of years. And I think they've got the right guys in place to do just that.
Oh, yeah. I'm fired up for Kotelnicki to be back. I know my group chat as well of KU alumni is also fired up for that as well. Let's close with this, because I know you have like one of the best stories I've ever heard of breaking into the industry that you shared with me when I was a senior at KU. And it's kind of been inspiring, and a lot of people who are in that same class that you shared it with have always brought it up as something people look back on and always kind of use for their inspiration, motivation as well. So just kind of want to give you the floor of how you broke in there.
Wow. Well, there's a lot of elements to my story in terms of how I got to the voice of Texas Tech and then the voice of KU. So I'm trying to recall specifically what I told your class.
The Texas Tech one where you threw the football and
sure.
Yes, that one.
Yeah, I threw a football 100 yards to Patrick Mahomes, and the NFL said, "Wow, these are the two most impressive arms we've ever seen." No, that's not the story. The story is, I was working at KLWN in Lawrence as the sports director, and I was doing women's basketball and baseball, but trying to get that first full-time men's gig. And KU had told me, you're in strong position. You're probably the guy to take over one day whenever Bob retires, but you need to get your own men's job in order to come home. Got to leave in order to come home, and that's tough to hear, but it's also very understanding. And I was up for other jobs. I was offered the job at the College of Charleston, and there were a couple others that would have been smaller conference, further away type places. And I worried that if I took those jobs, though great locations, would not be great in terms of staying top of mind awareness with KU people, because you'd be really far off the beaten path and you're not being seen or heard from anymore as much. And getting this job, any job at the major conference college level or professional level, is all about networking and your contacts and staying in touch with these people. And so they told me I needed to kind of go out and prove myself, but I didn't want to venture too far. And so after having that conversation with some of the KU people, I needed to get on the radar of leadership at Learfield, which at the time, Learfield's primary location was in Jefferson City, Missouri. They've since merged with IMG and have also, Winston-Salem is one of their branches. But Learfield and Tom Bowman were in Jeff City, Missouri. And I knew a guy that I'd worked with in a previous job who was an engineer that lived nearby, and he knew Tom very well. And I said, I want to do something out of the ordinary to get Tom's attention, to get him to listen to my demo reel. And I've got an idea, but I might need your help. And he said, okay, sure, whatever you need. I said, here's the thing. I'm going to Venmo you, or PayPal you probably back then, $30 to go to Walmart and buy an NFL football and a silver paint pen or Sharpie. With the Sharpie, I want you to write my website, brianhanni.com, on the side of the football. And then, since he knew Tom personally and Tom would recognize him by face, I said, I want you to show up whenever you think Tom shows up for work and meet him across the parking lot, 30, 40 feet away, not 30 or 40 yards. Make it close enough where you can throw this ball. But I want you to say, hey, Tom, here's a Hail Mary all the way from Lawrence, Kansas. And then Tom, in theory, would drop his briefcase, catch the ball, look at it, and then my buddy would shout back, Brian Hanni's a real catch, or something like that. Super cheesy. And it wasn't about the tagline. It was as much about just doing something that would get on his radar in a physical way. Like he would have a physical, tangible reminder of me that would then sit on his desk, and he would march right in and pull up the website and listen to my stuff. Because the first and only job that was going at that point was Mississippi State. And so, to a T, my buddy executes it perfect. Shows up at the right time, calls out the hey, Tom, throws a tight spiral right on the money, hit him between the numbers, made the catch. Tom is impressed by the creativity of the move, goes into his office. Within 10 minutes, has listened to my stuff. Within 15 minutes, he sent me an email. And he's the most powerful man in college play-by-play. And within 15 minutes, this $30 and a favor burned had me one-on-one talking with this guy. So it was a success already. Only the email said, Brian, you're not going to get the Mississippi State job. I wasn't crushed. I wasn't invested, but I was like, oh, I continued to read. He said, we need to hire somebody that's from the South that sounds like they're from Mississippi, and that's not you. But you've impressed me today. You've got my attention. Let's stay in touch. Check back in a few months, and let's see where this leads. He then takes the football and puts it in the break room at Learfield. Learfield at the time, I think, produced about 90 different schools' broadcasts. And as the story goes, for the rest of that year, whenever somebody needed to take a break to get some fresh air, go outside, stretch the legs, one of the producer engineers from one of the other networks, they would go into the break room, they'd grab the brianhanni.com football, and they'd go outside and chuck it around. By the end of that year, every producer of every school in the country had been to my website, because if you're catching this football that says somebody's name on it, you're kind of curious, right? So you're going to check it out. And so a year later, the Texas Tech job opened. I actually had an inside track there based on the guy that was resigning, which was another huge blessing and a great lesson in networking that you never know who you might befriend that might be able to help you down the line. So always treat people with kindness and try to make those connections with no ulterior motive or personal agenda whatsoever, but just be a good guy or a good gal. And you never know, it might open a door. Mark Finkner tipped me off that he was going to resign before he even went into his boss to tell him, because he wanted me to have the first crack at it. So that inside track, coupled with the networking I'd done with the football with Tom Bowman, got me on the short list there. And good Lord was lucky. I was lucky enough. The good Lord blessed me and sent me there for 4 years, 4 awesome years. I consider that my second home. And then 4 years after that, I got to come home to Kansas. So it's stuff like that. It takes a little bit of marketing creativity. Takes a whole lot of networking, a whole lot of luck, and an even more large amount of blessing. But here I am living my dream and trying to make the most of this post every day, not just in calling good games and keeping the audience entertained and engaged, but trying to make a real impact through this platform I've been blessed with. So that's the charge each and every day, 10 years deep as the voice of the Jayhawks. And hopefully we'll continue to do this for as long as I have air in my lungs and the good Lord's willing. So that's my hope.
Still love hearing that story, and it's just great to have somebody, you never give up, but always make yourself stand out as well. That's, from that story, just last thing here for people who don't know you, where can they follow your work and hear your wonderful voice out there?
You're awful kind, Nick. Thank you. On X, pretty easy to find, @BHanni, and it's spelled Hanni. So @BHANNI, or Instagram, probably do a lot on that. We do some fun stuff with baseball season. We dedicate every broadcast to an adoptable dog at the Lawrence Humane Society. So if you want sports content, but also a lot of really cute puppies, follow me on Instagram, Brian.Hanni. You can find me there.
There we go. Brian Hanni, the voice of KU Athletics and the baseball regional for the first time in Lawrence this week, and you'll hear him there as well. Brian, appreciate you hanging out with me here on Cousins Conversations.
Hey, thank you, Nick. Proud of you and your success, buddy. Wish you nothing but the best, my friend.
Thank you, Brian. All right. Have a great week, everybody out there.